Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by Team Testbook Super Coaching. I hope all of you are doing really well, and I'm so sorry about yesterday. I was having a severe stomach and abdomen pain because of which we couldn't really take your class. But we are going to be compensating because yesterday, of course, हम लोगों का topic जो American poetry का हमें खत्म करना है, वो of course हम लोग reschedule करेंगे. I hope all of you are all set for today's session. Good evening, Satyendra, Dominator, Shweta Padma, Kanchan, Himanshi, Monica, Shabnam. Thanks so much, Abnam, for inquiring. I'm doing much better. Kanchan, Monica, Obama, good evening. We will be having this very brief yet important quick class altogether. I will quickly also share the link with all of you so that all of you are well aware about the starting of the class. देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से let's just quickly get started. Let's just quickly get started. Today ये जो आपका book है इसका PDF मैं आपको टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म पे दे दूंगी. There's a book called The Poetry of T.S. Eliot. इस बुक के अंदर आपको मॉडर्न पोएट्री का एक ओवरव्यू दिया जाता है और साथ ही साथ में टी.एस. एलियट की जो पोएम्स हैं उनके बारे में भी बताया जाता है. हम लोग वेस्टलैंड के ऊपर एक सेपरेट सेशन करेंगे जिसमें हम वेस्टलैंड और अदर इंपॉर्टेंट पोएम्स को देखेंगे. गुड इवनिंग मोनिका. जिसमें हम वेस्टलैंड और अदर पोएम्स को साथ में देखेंगे. लेकिन आज हमारा टॉपिक क्या है? आज वी विल बी लुकिंग एट टी.एस. एलियट. थोड़ा सा रिवाइज करेंगे. बहुत ही ब्रीफ डिस्क्रिप्शन और इस बुक के अंदर भी जो बताया जाता है उस चीज को हम लोग अच्छी तरह से देखेंगे. तो जैसे कि मैंने आपको कहा ये एक आपका पीडीएफ है और ये जो पीडीएफ है आई विल बी शेयरिंग इट विद ऑल ऑफ यू. ये जो बुक का पीडीएफ है आई शेयर इट विद ऑल ऑफ यू सो दैट ऑल ऑफ यू हैव दैट आल्सो. तो अच्छी तरह से आप इस पीडीएफ को एक बार गो थ्रू कर लीजिएगा. ऑल ऑफ यू कैन एक्चुअली टेक अ टूर ऑफ इट. इसमें सारी की सारी चीजें जो हैं वो बहुत ही बढ़िया तरीके से दे रखी हैं एंड यू नो ओवरऑल आल्सो इट्स आल्सो वेरी गुड. सो दिस इज व्हाट द पीडीएफ इज एक्चुअली कॉल्ड एज एंड आई विल शेयर इट विद ऑल ऑफ यू. इट इज कॉल्ड द पोएट्री ऑफ टीएस एलियट. द पोएट्री ऑफ टीएस एलियट विक्रमादित्य राय के द्वारा दिस इज एडिटेड. इट्स लाइक दुआबा हाउस का पब्लिकेशन है. दिस इज वेरी सिमिलर टू यू नो योर सो कॉल्ड रामजी लाल बुक्स. काफी सारे बच्चे जो इस तरह की बुक्स को रेकमेंड करते हैं राइट देखते हैं रेफर करते हैं. तो यू विल बी एबल टू सी अ सिमिलैरिटी एंड काफी अच्छी तरीके से इन्होंने टीएस एलियट के वर्क्स को पूरी तरह से कवर किया है. ठीक है. तो आई वुड शेयर दिस पीडीएफ. दिस इज अ पीडीएफ दैट वी आर हैविंग एंड ऑफ कोर्स वी विल बी रिवाइजिंग. आवर एजेंडा इज गोइंग टू बी टू लुक एट टीएस एलियट. और जैसे कि मैंने आपको कह दिया कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट अन्य पोएट्री और पोएटिक वर्क्स जो टीएस एलियट के हैं that also we'll be covering. Of course proof rock becomes very important. ठीक है. ये पूछा भी जाता है आपका love song of JR for proof rock 1915 जो है that's the epicenter, the starting point of modern poetry. And remember let us go then you and I, the opening lines that we're able to see in proof rock, they also become important. ठीक है. So please keep that in mind. Kanchan, I will see if in case I'm having that PDF I'll definitely share it on the group. You don't have to worry about it. और इस तरह की अगर कोई रिक्वेस्ट आपको करनी होती है राइट आप लोगों को कोई भी पीडीएफ चाहिए या कोई भी आपको लगता है कि किसी टॉपिक में आपको हेल्प चाहिए तो प्लीज लेट मी नो ऑन neerja.raheja.faculty@testbook.com. neerja.raheja.faculty@testbook.com. अभी जैसे आपके रिजल्ट्स भी आएंगे तो अगर आपको शेयर करना है यू नो योर गुड न्यूज़ एक्सेट्रा यू प्लीज डू लेट मी नो अबाउट इट ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर ईमेल आईडी. ठीक है. और ऐसा कोई रिक्वेस्ट वगैरह भी करना है तो यू कैन लेट मी नो. ठीक है. All right. Without further ado, let's just very quickly get started. So हम लोग poetry of T.S. Eliot को देखेंगे. We'll be looking at the poetry of T.S. Eliot. आपको पता है कि portrait of a lady, you know, when we are talking about, of course हमें पता है कि portrait of a lady और कौन लिख रहा है. But even T.S. Eliot is actually writing that, right? तो portrait of a lady ना सिर्फ हेनरी जेम्स ने लिखा है but portrait of a lady you should know. These kind of facts आपको पता होने चाहिए कि सिर्फ हेनरी जेम्स ने ही नहीं लिखा है but portrait of a lady it's actually inspired by Henry James's work itself. So what are you able to see? Portrait of a lady 1915 जो love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. जैसे इस बार वेस्ट बंगाल सेट एग्जाम में उन्होंने पूछा था कि इनमें से कौन सा वर्क 1922 में नहीं पब्लिश हुआ है. तो आपको पब्लिकेशन डेट्स भी पता होनी चाहिए. कैसे यू नो द पोर्ट्रेट ऑफ अ लेडी जो हेनरी जेम्स ने लिखा है उसी का ही एक तरह से एको हो रहा है टाइटल पोर्ट्रेट ऑफ अ लेडी. एंड दिस पोर्ट्रेट ऑफ अ लेडी इज बाय टी.एस. एलियट. This portrait of a lady is by T.S. Eliot. It's divided into 3 parts altogether. It is trying to tell you about this lady and the young man whom she loves, right? The lady is really loving this young man altogether. ठीक है. और विंटर स्प्रिंग एंड ऑटम सीजन को दिखाया गया है right? इस पर्टिकुलर वर्क में विंटर, स्प्रिंग एंड ऑटम, विंटर, स्प्रिंग एंड ऑटम को दिखाया गया है, right? So that is what we are able to see. Winter, spring and autumn को अच्छी तरह से बताया गया है. The seasons are there. The central character of the poem is a lady who speaks about her heart, and she is revealing herself via soliloquies. So soliloquies के through she is actually trying to reveal herself. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Please remember that. इसको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना. That's nice, Kanchan, and keep on regularly joining as well. So इस तरह के questions, इस तरह के pointers आपको पता होनी चाहिए. Proof frog हो गया, love song of gelatin proof frog, portrait of a lady हो गया, और works like Geraint. So ये भी आपको question net में पूछा जाता है. You do get questions related to Geraint. So what is Geraint? Geraint, the little old man, right? इसका title का मतलब क्या होता है? Little old man. And इसका जो epigraph है, that is taken from Shakespeare's play Measure for Measure. Shakespeare का जो play है Measure for Measure, वहाँ पे Geraint का उन्होंने टाइटल ले रखा है. So you will have to be a little more aware, you will have to be a little more well aware about these aspects as well, right? And remember, I was neither at hot gates, nor fought in warm rain, nor knee deep in salt marsh heaving cutlass. ये गेरेंशीन की lines हैं. तो एक एक poem भी अगर आप regularly T.S. Eliot, William Butler Yeats के पढ़ते हैं, तो you are able to understand their entire work properly, right? So please keep that in mind. Now, just to quickly revise, हम लोगों ने अभी तक T.S. Eliot के criticism को देखा है. We've looked at T.S. Eliot's criticism. Remember, हम लोगों ने ये भी बोला था कि how your Terry Gilton considers T.S. Eliot to be an important critic, right? और T.S. Eliot ने किस किस तरीके के works लिखे हैं. He has written frontiers of criticism. So T.S. Eliot के critical works को अगर हम देखेंगे, so he has written works like Frontiers of Criticism. He has written works, of course, Hamlet and His Problems, Tradition and Individual Talent. So Tradition and Individual Talent, Hamlet and His Problems, right? Sacred Wood में ये publish हो रहे हैं. आज हम लोग we were talking about also, remember, क्योंकि कल की हम लोगों की क्लासरूम क्लास भी रीस्केड्यूल हुई थी, तो इन टुडेज 7 PM क्लास हम लोगों ने क्या डिस्कस किया था. आज के 7 PM क्लास में हम लोगों ने कहा था प्रैक्टिकल क्रिटिक्स, आपके दो इंपॉर्टेंट प्रैक्टिकल क्रिटिक्स, न्यू क्रिटिक्स आपके आ जाते हैं. देन आपका कॉन्टिनेंटल फॉर्मलिज्म आ रहा है. कॉन्टिनेंटल फॉर्मलिज्म को पहले क्या कहा जाता है? रशियन फॉर्मलिज्म. दिस इज व्हाट वी वर डिस्कसिंग इन द 7 PM lecture where we were talking about Russia and Russian writings and Russian literature. और मैंने आपको यहाँ पर ये भी बताया था कि आपकी क्रिटिसिज्म के अंदर हम न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म को भी पढ़ेंगे, राइट? न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म. दिस इज आल्सो समथिंग दैट वी हैड स्पोकन अबाउट, राइट? तो प्लीज रिमेंबर, न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म का बिगिनिंग एक तरह से ऑल ऑफ दीज वर्क्स आर एक्चुअली डूइंग. तो ये हम लोगों ने देखा भी था. ट्रेडिशन एंड इंडिविजुअल टैलेंट में ही सेज दैट a slavish imitation of tradition is not required. You need to understand what is relevant, and you need to also he's also proposing the theory of impersonality. Okay, so poetry is not a turning loose of emotion, but an escape from emotion. It is not an expression of personality, but an escape from personality. ये कौन सी आ जाती है? This is the theory of impersonality. What is this? This is famously called as the theory of impersonality that we are able to see. ठीक है? So please keep that in mind. Please remember that. That very nice, Manshi. That's good. I think आपने office के बाद you would have actually revised that. That's really nice. So please keep that in mind कि ये important works आपके हम लोगों ने of course cover किए हुए हैं. We've spoken about T.S. Eliot. We've also looked at, because we were talking about criticism of T.S. Eliot, तो criticism of T.S. Eliot के अंदर ये चीजें भी हम लोगों ने डिस्कस करी थी कि कैसे ट्रेडिशन एंड इंडिविजुअल टैलेंट में what is ये आप लोगों ने याद है कमेंट सेक्शन में करा था. लास्ट टाइम का होमवर्क आप लोगों ने कमेंट सेक्शन में दिया नहीं था. सो आई विल चेक इट ओवर द वीकेंड ऑल्सो. मैं मंडे को जब हम लोग मिलेंगे वील टॉक अबाउट इट. मंडे को एक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक कंपैरेटिव लिटरेचर का हम कवर करेंगे. तो please remember that. So in tradition and individual talent, Eliot is describing poet's mind as a catalytic agent, right? Remember, मैंने आपको catalysis का homework भी दिया था. I talked about poetic creation को Eliot कैसे professionally, scientifically consider करते हैं. That becomes important for us to review all together. Good evening, Lichi. Good evening. So please keep that in mind. Please remember that. So tradition and individual talent में how Eliot is describing a poet's mind as a catalytic agent, ये आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा. And Eliot has said Shakespeare's Hamlet is the Mona Lisa of literature because you can actually comment on it, right? आप उसको psychological dimension से पढ़ सकते हैं, आप उसको feminist angle से पढ़ सकते हैं. Ophelia, for instance, right? Or when you're able to see only Shakespeare's comedy heroines, comic heroines, romantic comedy heroines are only powerful. Tragedy mein to only Cleopatra is the most powerful one. Otherwise, you're not able to see that. And also, he's coining the term objective correlative disassociation of sensibility. ये वाला और ये मैंने आपको homework भी दिया था. If you remember this week, I hope आपने उसको अच्छी तरह से देख लिया होगा. Objective correlative, that Hamlet at one end wants to take revenge, ठीक है? और दूसरी तरफ he's saying कि revenge is an unholy deed, it's an unchristian deed. Then why is he not killing? Why is he not killing Claudius in the prayer room scene, right? So, वो objective correlative is not something which becomes very clear to us, right? Disassociation of sensibility के बारे में also he talks about in greater length altogether. Disassociation of sensibility, it was coined in the metaphysical poet. ये कहाँ पर coin हुआ था? It was coined in the metaphysical poet. So please remember that. And ये objective correlative कहाँ पे coin हो रहा है? Hamlet and his problems में coin हो रहा है. ये easy questions भी आपको आते हैं. You should be well aware about these aspects also, because a lot of times when we actually miss out on these questions, right? When we actually miss out on these questions, these are easy to score marks that we are technically letting go of. So please be a little more careful. Please have a little more knowledge about these concepts as well. Now, T.S. Eliot was of course influenced by a French symbolist. इनका एक बहुत ही बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट योगदान रहता है. आपको याद है आज मैंने जब मैं 7 o'clock की क्लास ले रही थी, मैंने आपको क्या बताया था? आई टोल्ड यू अबाउट हाउ रशियन फॉर्मलिज्म एंड रिमेंबर अ मूवमेंट दैट वी वर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट फ्यूचरिज्म, राइट? फ्यूचरिज्म आपका जो मॉडर्न मूवमेंट था. सो दीज एक्सपेरिमेंटल फॉर्म्स ऑफ राइटिंग, दीज एक्सपेरिमेंटल फॉर्म्स ऑफ राइटिंग आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, और इनका जो कोरिलेशन होता है वो भी आपके लिए काफी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, ठीक है? सो प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट. ओके, no worries, no worries, no worries at all. So please keep it in mind, all of these aspects that you're largely able to see. T.S. Eliot's Journey of the Magi, it is talking about the Persian king who visited Christ. So that is what the Journey of Magi is talking about. So again, what are you able to see? You're able to see that overall उनका जो broad criticism है, tradition and individual talent, Hamlet and his problems, metaphysical poets, frontiers of criticism, ये सारी की सारी critical works आपको एक तरह का perspective दे रहे हैं. The theory of impersonality, the theory related to new criticism आ रहा है, and it is very appropriate क्योंकि आज 7 बजे भी हम वही चीज बोल रहे थे. We were talking about it. फिर 8:30 बजे की क्लास में भी जब हम robbers को discuss कर रहे थे by Skiller, and we said that how Skiller and Goethe are becoming a part of the Weimar classicism, a movement which is focusing on new humanism in German writings. So again, आप देख पा रहे हो कि there is a stress on art, there is a stress on understanding art, there is a stress on understanding art as in isolation and not as agitation propaganda. फिर अभी जैसे 8:30 जो हम जर्मन लिटरेचर कर रहे थे, when we were talking about Franz Kafka, remember America called The Man Who Disappeared or The Missing Man, right, which was actually the first novel, but we were able to see that it was posthumously published. We also saw how Castle was not completed. It was an unfinished work on his death. He burned 90% of his works as well. तो ये सारे writers art को art समझ रहे हैं. There is no propaganda, but still there is a psychological element, because remember Letter to a Father में Kafka also says that his father played a preeminent role. यही चीजें हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे थे. और तभी मैं आप लोगों को कहती हूँ that make correlations between all the classes that you are attending, so that the experience is a lot more richer and your retention becomes better. Because let's be very honest, we are all coming over here to retain things, to learn in a structured manner, to understand things in a conceptual clarity अच्छी तरह से आने के लिए. So please remember all of these things and make those comparisons all together. Okay. Now, of course, there's an important work called Frontiers of Criticism. I'll try to either, okay, one second, I'll just reduce my this thing so that you'll be able to see it a little better. So when we're talking about Frontiers of Criticism, ये lecture जो था, it was given by T.S. Eliot at the University of Minnesota, and it was reprinted in On Poetry and Poets. On Poetry and Poets के form में it was actually even reprinted, right? So please keep that in mind. And this essay is an attempt by Eliot to talk about the boundaries, the frontiers of criticism, the contours of criticism. तो ये चीज हम लोग देख पाते हैं that T.S. Eliot is trying to define the role of a critic. What does a critic do? What do you mean by a critic altogether? He's trying to talk about that. ठीक है? He's trying to discuss that. तो ये सारे वर्क्स एक तरह से टीएस एलियट का एक एस्पेक्ट ऐसे क्रिटिक बताते हैं his entire journey to talk about it. Now this entire work, the poetry of T.S. Eliot, ये आपको पूरा का पूरा बताती है, right? This entire work tries to highlight, this entire work tries to bring together. ये पूरा का पूरा जो वर्क है ये आपको अच्छी तरह से familiarize कराती है, ये पीडीएफ जो है आपको familiarize करवाती है. For instance, ये आपको बताते हैं कि tradition and individual talent was actually published in the egoist first, ठीक है, and later it was published in the sacred wood. ये question आपसे पूछा जाता है कैसे ये तीन parts में divided है, the concept of tradition, the concept of impersonal poetry, and the conclusion, right? What does tradition actually holds? It's not a slavish imitation, but it doesn't even means कि आपको tradition के बारे में पता ही नहीं है, right? You need to have proper knowledge about your tradition. So please remember, an important aspect in understanding the poetry of T.S. Eliot also lies in making sure that we understand his role as a critic, the defining role that he plays as a critic. ये आज हम लोगों ने ये दूसरा लेक्चर हो गया है. Remember टेरी गिल्टन वाले, उसमें भी अगर आप टेरी गिल्टन वाले पीडीएफ को भी टीएस एलियट का स्किम थ्रू कर लोगे, और मैंने आपको बताया कि हम लोग ये कर लेंगे. We'll be covering wasteland separately. We'll be talking about wasteland in a separate class altogether. The 5 parts of wasteland also we'll be discussing that. So what are you able to overall see? You're able to overall see that the man becomes very clear. We are able to understand his writings in a better manner. We're able to understand that what is exactly T.S. Eliot overall up to. तो ये सारी चीजें आपको पता होनी चाहिए. Wasteland is of course very important, right? Wasteland of course is coming across, and it's one of the most important books, but overall भी ये सारी चीजें clear होना, ये सारे aspects clear होना, that becomes important for us. ठीक है? Eliot is defining poetry as not a turning loose of emotion but an escape from emotion, not the expression of personality but an escape from personality. This is called the theory of impersonality. इसको क्या कहा जाता है? This is famously called as the theory of impersonality, जो T.S. Eliot जिससे associated है, right? And therefore tradition and individual talent में वो क्या लेके आ रहे हैं? He is getting the theory of impersonality. वो हमें theory of impersonality देते हैं. He is talking about tradition overall, so please keep that in mind. Now Hamlet and his problems के अंदर what are we able to see? Hamlet and his problems, which was later, ये question पूछा गया, it was later printed in Faber and Faber. Hamlet, like I said, is called as the Mona Lisa of literature. अभी मैंने आपको बताया था, because it's opening itself to multiple readings. Remember, so Freud talks about, Freud अपनी essay Mourning and Melancholy में क्या कहते हैं? फ्रॉइड अपने essay Mourning and Melancholy में कहते हैं that Hamlet is delaying his action because of his period of mourning. For instance, आज अगर आपका पेन गुम जाता है आपको एक दिन बुरा लगेगा, ठीक है, 1 घंटा बुरा लगेगा. अगर आपका फोन गुम जाता है आपको 1 हफ्ता बुरा लगेगा. If you lose your pet dog, God forbid, then you feel really bad for a very long time. If you lose your family member, the impact is always there in your head. So what is Freud trying to talk about? That our period of mourning, जब हम रो रहे होते हैं किसी चीज के लिए, is linked with our proximity with the object of desire. और जितना ज्यादा ये object of desire से हमारा attachment होता है, उतना ही ज्यादा लंबा हमारा mourning period होता है. And this elongated mourning period, ये जो elongated, ये जो बड़ा mourning period है, जब हम लोग मलाल कर रहे होते हैं, जब हम रो रहे होते हैं, जब हम दुख में होते हैं, this elongated period that we have, this elongated period that we are actually having, what are we able to see? We are able to see in this elongated period that we are getting closer, right? We are getting closer to not doing any activity. We are incapable of any action overall. That is what you are able to see. So please remember that. अच्छा, ये जो book है आपकी, the poetry of T.S. Eliot, इसके अंदर से एक excerpt है. This is a part of it. This is something which is a part of it. I'll just share it Yeah. So this is one part that you are able to see. This is one part that that comes in over here. So he also says Shakespeare and the Stoicism of Seneca. Eliot कहता है the great poet in writing himself writes his time. These are the most beautiful lines actually. Therefore, I'd picked it up that how T.S. Eliot staying true. He's a new critic, but he also talks about tradition. He also talks about knowledge of the time. तो न्यू क्रिटिक का ये मतलब नहीं है कि आपको टाइम का नॉलेज नहीं हो रहा है. That's a very important point that he makes, right? So clearly endorsing there by a new historicism himself. तो तभी आपके PhD आंसर्स थोड़े से और रिच हो जाते हैं. तो ये बुक को आप डेफिनेटली स्किम थ्रू करिएगा. ये एक पार्ट है इस बुक का जो मैंने निकाला है यहाँ पर. But very important that the great poet writing himself is writing his own times. You're trying to talk about the power hierarchies. You're trying to talk about what the time was. You're trying to bring across time and the other realities all together. तो ये सारी चीजें thanks लीजिए. That's very sweet of you. That's very sweet of you. So ये सारी की सारी चीजें जो आप देखते हो, ये सारी चीजें, right? All of these things, what are we able to see? We are able to look at. We're able to see and understand in the writings of T.S. Eliot. So please read that up. मैं ये PDF आपको Telegram, Neerja Ma'am Testbook और English Literature Hustlers पे I will send it to you. ये PDF जो है Poetry of T.S. Eliot जो मैंने आपको बताया, I'll send it to you. ठीक है. Now please remember T.S. Eliot. जैसे आज I was telling you about Skiller. हम लोगों ने पढ़ा था 7 बजे की क्लास में. What were we saying? Skiller started writing. He had written The Robbers, the play which is telling you the story of two brothers. One is the elder Moore, the other is Franz Moore. Franz Moore takes the property of the father, and the elder Moore that we are having, he goes and into the forest area with a group of rebellious college students. So remember, what did we talk about? Skiller had written The Robbers when in school. Similarly, T.S. Eliot, या फिर the other people also that you're able to see, T.S. Eliot actually started writing poetry when he was 14 under the influence of Edward Fitzgerald's Rubaiyat of Umar Khayyam. Very important work जो हम Victorian poetry के अंदर go through भी करते हैं. We actually take a look at it also under Victorian poetry. That is what you're able to see. ठीक है. So please keep that in mind. Please remember that because a lot of times इस तरह के questions जो आपसे पूछे जाते हैं, बताए जाते हैं, you should actually be knowing about it, right? Yes, very nice. Very nice, Devashish. Art has, absolutely right. Art has all the solutions. This is what we were talking about when we discussed German Romanticism. Excellent. तो मतलब आपने notes अच्छी तरह से बनाए हैं. Very good, very good, very good. Excellent, Himanshi. The play was inspired by Leibniz. Very good, very nice. I'm proud of all of you. इसी तरह से correlate करके आप revise करते रहे. Now you're understanding why I say attend all sessions, right? Because when you are attending all the sessions, automatically आपका energy, momentum, सब कुछ आपको याद रहता है. जैसे हम लोगों ने कहा थॉमस मैन was associated with exiliterator. देखो उस क्लास के टाइम पे रिविजन का टाइम कभी मिलता है, कभी नहीं मिलता है, जो कि अब मिलेगा नेक्स्ट वीक ऑनवर्ड्स. जैसे मैंने आपको कहा था कि अब आपका वर्कशीट भी आ जाएगा, क्योंकि अभी तक हम 60 मिनट्स का कॉन्सेप्ट कर रहे थे. अब नेक्स्ट वीक ऑनवर्ड्स 30 मिनट्स का आपका वर्कशीट भी आ जाएगा, तो टोटल 90 मिनट्स. बट स्टिल if you're joining everything, you are able to recollect everything. Very nice, very proud. I think both of them deserve a mention. Devashish, very good, right? Sorry, I think I've written his wrong spellings. And Himanshi, excellent. Okay, Himanshi and Devashish, very good. Shout outs to both of you. Very nice. Okay, and of course आपका Ash Wednesday, which is called the conversion poem as well. You're able to see that T.S. Eliot की जो conversion poem है, that is Ash Wednesday 1927 के अंदर that is coming. By the way, he's also written Hippopotamus. ठीक है. T.S. Eliot का एक work जो कई बार हम लोग भूल जाते हैं. What is that work? It is called Hippopotamus. Hippopotamus is a satire on church. T.S. Eliot का ये जो work है Hippopotamus, this is a satire on church altogether. ठीक है. So that is something that you will have to definitely keep in mind. And Ash Wednesday को conversion poem कहा जाता है. It is based on Dante's Purgatory. ठीक है. And please remember Vladimir Nabokov ने Ash Wednesday को parody किया था लॉलिता के अंदर. This is when he converted himself to Anglicanism from Unitarianism. ठीक है. And remember हम लोगों ने जब करा भी था that how he is royalist in his allegiance, he is classicist in his thought process. Jesus, and he became, a follower of the Anglican Church overall. तो ये हम लोगों ने discuss भी किया था, if you all remember that all together. Excellent Imanshi. Robert आ गया, Wallenstein trilogy के अंदर है, and Mary Stuart. Very good. And Mary Stuart, remember what was the most famous line of Mary Stuart? That अगर आपके पास majority है, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप ही justice लोगे. So that is what Mary Stuart was trying to talk about. So I hope you are clear about that as well. Fine. Very good. Eliot का जो first major poem है, that is of course the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and this was published on Pound's insistence in Poetry, a magazine altogether. Okay. So love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, again, that is one of the most important works that we are able to see. Why is it very important? It is important. अच्छा, एक question आपका आता है, love song of J. Alfred Prufrock का title कहाँ से आ रहा है? This question comes, and you all may know this as well. So love song of J. Alfred Prufrock का title आपका Rudyard Kipling से आ रहा है. So कहाँ से, where are you getting it? Where is this title coming in from? ये जो आपका title आ रहा है, ये title आपका कहाँ से आ रहा है? ये title आपका Rudyard Kipling से आ रहा है. The love song of Hardayal. The love song of Hardayal. The love song of Hardayal. यहाँ से आपका टाइटल आ रहा है. द लव सॉन्ग ऑफ हरदयाल से आपका टाइटल आ रहा है. प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट द टाइटल इज एक्चुअली कमिंग इन फ्रॉम हियर. लेट अस गो देन, यू एंड आई. द मोस्ट फेमस लाइंस, व्हेन द इवनिंग स्प्रेड आउट अगेंस्ट द स्काई लाइक अ पेशेंट etherized on a table, like a patient etherized on a table. ये आपका आता है, right? So please remember Prufrock is very sad about his physical intellectual inertia, right? And the love is obviously unattained altogether. This is what you were able to see. Acha, by the way, when we talk about the structure is actually something which is inspired, again, थोड़ा सा दांते का influence यहाँ पर आपको पता चलता है. Okay, and remember a very famous line, no, I am not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. It is impossible to say just what I mean. It is impossible to say just what I mean. Most of us experience that. So love song of J. Alfred Prufrock of course becomes important, and यहाँ पर you also should be able to recollect and remember कि timelines क्या क्या आ रही हैं. 1917 से 1919 तक T.S. Eliot was working as the editor of the Egoist. Egoist was a sort of a feminist magazine. So he was the editor of the Egoist. 1923 में he became the editor of the Criterion. So पहले आपका क्या था? पहले आपका Egoist था, फिर आपका क्या आ रहा है? फिर आपका Criterion आ रहा है, फिर आपका क्या आ रहा है? फिर आपका Criterion आ रहा है. And then 1925 he became the director at the British Order of Merit, and he also got the Nobel Prize in 1948, right? 1948 he's awarded the Nobel Prize. तो थोड़ी important moments आपको याद रखने चाहिए. थोड़े important works जैसे which work is a satire on church by T.S. Eliot? Hippopotamus is a satire on the church by T.S. Eliot. Hippopotamus is considered to be a gross, filthy figure on earth, but that's a different story in the heaven. तो overall ये सारी चीजें आपको पता चलती हैं. You should be more aware about it. So he edited Egoist, he edited Criterion. He was also a person who received the Nobel Prize altogether. You should be keeping that in mind. Okay, I will probably go a little towards this side so that all of you can actually see this. Yes, now you would be able to see that. So what are we able to see? Like I told you, Prufrock and other poems जो आपका आया है, title like I was telling you is coming from the love song of Hardayal. इसका जो title है वो कहाँ से आ रहा है? Title is coming from love song of Hardayal. Love song of Hardayal से your title is actually coming, so please be a little mindful of that. And title is referring to love song, but it's anti-romantic in tone, right? The failure, the inability, right? He's not a successful lover. His love is not successful. It's unattained, right? इसका जो love है, that is unattained. The love is not attained. It's written as a love song, but it's not attained. That's the modern reality. अभी मैं आपको बता भी रही थी. Remember Gregor Samsa, Castle के अंदर कौन सा protagonist है? K. Then when we were talking about your trial. Joseph K was coming. Remember, Joseph K said, like a dog when he stabbed to death. Last line. That is what we were discussing. So please keep that in mind. Of course, the wasteland I've already told you. Wasteland के ऊपर हम separately we will be looking at wasteland. We will be talking about wasteland in greater detail. लेकिन कुछ pointers जो आप ध्यान में रख सकते हैं about wasteland is of course that you should be knowing about the different parts into which wasteland is divided. ये सबसे पहले आपको थोड़ा बहुत याद रखना पड़ता है, because directly a lot of times even in your set exams you're able to see a lot of these questions coming in. तो please remember that. अच्छा, एलन टेट ने वेस्टलैंड को क्या कहा है? म्यूजिक ऑफ आइडियाज. एलन टेट ने वेस्टलैंड को क्या बोला है? एलन टेट के हिसाब से, अकॉर्डिंग टू एलन टेट, इट्स एक्चुअली म्यूजिक ऑफ आइडियाज. Right, what is it? It's music of ideas. Music of ideas, Alan Tate ने इसको बोला है. And what are we able to see? It's having 5 parts. What are the 5 parts of the wasteland? The burial of the dead. ये भी please remember that. The burial of the dead. Like I said, we will be covering wasteland again, separately. The next is a game of chess. A game of chess. A game of chess. Burial of the dead. You will have to remember that. The fire sermon. The fire sermon. The fire sermon is coming. Death by water. Death by water. Death by water is there. And what the thunder said. ठीक है? What the thunder said. What the thunder said. ठीक है? तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है. That is divided into these 5 parts. It's divided into these 5 parts that are coming in. And of course, like I said, we will be looking at the wasteland in greater detail altogether. तो वो तो एक separate class में होगा. Criteria में आ रहा है. It is dedicated to Ezra Pound, and Ezra Pound is referred to as El Negro Fabro or the better craftsman. El Negro Fabro, ये please आप इसको याद रखिएगा. El Negro Fabro. This is the reference that you're able to see of Ezra Pound. And remember, Ezra Pound हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था परसों की अमेरिकन पोएट्री की क्लास में, when we said Ezra Pound, the American expatriate, who's going, he is also facing treason because he's saying that American poetry is not good. He's not appreciating Whitman. He says Whitman ki style of writing is not at all good. That is what you're able to see. So please remember that. Okay? Please keep that in mind. Do remember that. The wasteland is actually trying to tell you about disillusionment, the barrenness that you're able to see. वो तो हमें पता ही है. The love song of J.R. Prufrock, title coming from Love Song of Hardayal by Rudyard Kipling, and it is not a love song technically that you're able to see. Okay, so please इसको भी याद रखिएगा. Now when we are talking about the timeline, so to say, in T.S. Eliot's works, like I told you, he was of course awarded the Nobel Prize for his contribution to poetry. So predominantly, what are you able to see? They are very clear. They are saying that he's getting the Nobel Prize for his contribution that he's making to poetry. That's very clear. And his plays like Murder in the Cathedral, The Family Reunion, The Cocktail Party, The Confidential Clerk, The Elder Statesman, ये सारे के सारे plays are also becoming very important. अच्छा, plays के क्या quality है? T.S. Eliot के plays की क्या quality है? They are verse plays. What is the quality of T.S. Eliot's? Absolutely right. Yes. Correct, Himanshi. Very nice. तो आपको खुद भी देखो, when you are revising, जैसे अभी आपने 7 बजे का रशियन लिटरेचर का क्लास अटेंड करा जिसमें हमने रशियन फॉर्मलिज्म की एवोल्यूशन को देखा और 3 राइटर्स को कवर किया, या जर्मन राइटिंग्स को हम लोगों ने 8:30 बजे कवर किया. तो व्हेन यू आर रिव्यूइंग दैट, आपको थोड़ा सा कॉन्फिडेंस भी आता है. अच्छा, हाँ, हमें ये याद रह रहा है, वरना आधे से ज्यादा टाइम तो हमें यही लगता है कि भाई याद ही नहीं हो रहा है ना. तो वो चीज हमें एलिमिनेट करनी है. वो चीज हमें थोड़ी बहुत एलिमिनेट करनी पड़ेगी, तभी ऐसे रेगुलरली अटेंड एंड यू विल सी द इम्पैक्ट. ये सारे के सारे वर्स प्लेस हैं. अदर प्ले राइट्स ऑल्सो हु आर राइटिंग वर्स प्लेस, आज जैसे यूजिन मंजिन, अलेक्जेंडर पुश्किन, हु इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी वन ऑफ द पायनियरिंग रशियन राइटर्स, जो हम लोगों ने देखे थे. ओके, नाउ जो टी.एस. एलियट के प्लेज हैं, द प्ले स्वीनी, एग्नेस, राइट, दिस वाज एक्चुअली हिज फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट इन राइटिंग अ वर्स ड्रामा. लाइक आई टोल्ड यू, वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्वालिटीज ऑफ एलियट्स वर्क्स इज दैट ये वर्स प्लेस हैं, राइट. दैट्स द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्वालिटी दैट यू आर एबल टू सी. तो प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड बिकॉज ये आपका आता है. अच्छा, वैसे ही आपका होमवर्क क्वेश्चन मैं आपको देने ही वाली हूँ, सो आई एम नॉट टू वरीड अबाउट इट, बट प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड दैट इन दीज प्लेज द काइंड ऑफ राइटिंग्स दैट ही इज गेटिंग, ही इज ऑफ कोर्स, तभी इनको नोबेल प्राइज भी पोइट्री के लिए दिया जा रहा है, बिकॉज इवन द प्लेज दैट ही इज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग, दे आर वर्स प्लेज, even the criticism that he's written is talking about poetry and the art of writing poetry or poetry in general, तो तभी for his contribution to poetry he gets that, ठीक है, सो प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट। अच्छा, बाय द वे आपसे पूछा जाता है क्वेश्चन आपका जो आता है एरियल पोएम्स के ऊपर, यू शुड रिमेंबर इनकी जो एरियल पोएम्स हैं, इनकी जो टीएस एलियट की एरियल पोएम्स जो आ रही हैं, यू मस्ट रिमेंबर अबाउट द एरियल पोएम्स ऑल्सो। ये फेबर एंड फेबर सीरीज में लिखी गई थी, फेबर एंड फेबर सीरीज के अंदर आई थी, और इनमें कितनी पोएम्स है, तो यही क्वेश्चन आता है, इनमें 6 पोएम्स आ रही हैं। एरियल पोएम्स के अंदर कितनी पोएम्स आ रही हैं? यस, क्रिस्टोफर फ्राई, वेरी गुड पूजा, Christopher Fry is also writing, very nice point, Christopher Fry is also writing verse dramas जो in the context of realistic drama, जीबी शॉ का social plays जो आपके आ रहे हैं, या आपका एवे थिएटर आ रहा है, उस बीच में he is writing a different style of writing altogether। तो 6 poems आपकी आ जाती हैं, जिसमें आपका journey of Muggy आ जाता है, right, you are having the journey of Muggy which comes in, so you need to be aware about it, the journey of Muggy comes in, a song for sermon comes in, right, your a song for Simon, a song for Simeon is coming over here, Anomola is coming here, right, यहाँ पे आपका Anomola is coming। अच्छा, ये क्वेश्चन आपका आता है, this question actually comes in Marina के ऊपर आपका क्वेश्चन आता है, Triumphal March is also part of it. Triumphal March is also part of it, and the cultivation of Christmas tree, right? And the cultivation of Christmas tree. So it's very appropriate that we are talking about it, the cultivation of Christmas tree. The cultivation of Christmas tree, the cultivation of Christmas tree. तो आप क्या देख पा रहे हो? You are able to see that all of these are actually a part. All of these are actually a part of his aerial poem, so to say। 4 quatrains भी exactly आपसे पूछे जाते हैं, ये भी आपका question आता है, so you should remember that। Other plays that we are able to see, the rock is actually performed at the Sadler's Well Theatre। Sadler's Well Theatre में रॉक को परफॉर्म किया था। अच्छा, 4 quatrains आपके कौन कौन से हैं? ये भी क्वेश्चन आपका पूछा जाता है, you are getting these questions also that come in। तो ये आपके कौन कौन से 4 quatrains we are talking about, 4 sets of poems कौन सी हैं, ये आपको क्वेश्चन आता है। सो प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट बर्ट नॉटन इज सिंबॉलिक ऑफ एयर, एयर का सिंबलिज्म आता है इन बर्ट नॉटन। सो बर्ट नॉटन में किसका सिंबलिज्म आ रहा है? एयर का सिंबलिज्म आ रहा है। एयर आपकी किसको बुझा देती है? फायर को बुझा देती है, लिटिल गिडिंग, राइट, लिटिल गिडिंग। यू कैन रिमेंबर इट इन विच एवर ऑर्डर यू वांट टू, you can remember it in whichever order you want to। water is of course another important primary aspect, the dry salvages, right, the dry salvages is coming, the dry salvages is coming, and then earth, right, then your earth is there, earth is your east coker, right, earth is your east coker। so ये भी आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा, right। so overall when you're talking about the aerial poems, how many aerial poems are there are 6 aerial poems overall in your 4 quatrains। what all is coming? air, fire, water, earth के aspects को east coker, dry salvages, little gidding, burnt norton ये represent कर रहे हैं। प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट एज वेल, फाइन, प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट एज वेल, क्योंकि ये भी आपके एज इट इज आते हैं। सो यू शुड रिमेंबर एरियल पोएम्स कितने हैं, क्या हो रहा है, सो ये चीजें आपको थोड़ी ध्यान में रखनी है। अदर प्लेस ऑफ कोर्स, मर्डर इन द कैथीड्रल is again another important work। I'll just or probably I'll come over here so that will be easier। Murder in the Cathedral के अंदर of course it's talking about the assassination of Thomas A. Becket, right, in the cathedral। so Murder in the Cathedral, this is the same Thomas A. Becket जिसके अंदर Chaucer के pilgrims are also going to visit him, right। and it's of course divided into 2 parts। आज याद है हम लोगों ने क्या कहा था? Faust by Goethe, right। Faust by Goethe is also divided into 2 parts। the first part is in heaven, the first part is taking place in heaven, this is what we had talked about। I hope you remember that, okay। the first part is there in heaven, that is what we were discussing when Mephistopheles is there coming in, okay। he's receiving 4 tempters, the last of whom who tempts him to spiritual pride, okay। but he doesn't gives in, so again a very important work that comes in, fine। And of course, family reunion. Family reunion is also coming in. आपका family reunion is also another important work that you're largely able to see. So please keep that in mind that all of these works, right? All of these works that you are able to look at, blank verse. अच्छा आपको याद है जैसे हम लोग कह रहे थे iambic becomes obsolete. Iambic becomes obsolete for a lot of these American poets. हम लोग the Oxford Companion to American Poetry वाले lecture में ये बता रहे थे. Central character कौन है? Harry. हैंस कैस्टोर्प कहाँ का सेंट्रल कैरेक्टर है? हैंस कैस्टोर्प कहाँ का सेंट्रल कैरेक्टर है? रिमेंबर वी टॉक्ड अबाउट इट. हैंस कैस्टोर्प कहाँ का आपका सेंट्रल कैरेक्टर आ रहा है? आई होप you're all able to recollect that. Quickly बताइए. Remember the Magic Mountain, we were talking about it. We were talking about the sanatorium as well. Thomas Mann का work. Transposed heads is also उसमें add कर लेना. Transposed heads by Thomas Mann. Exil literature से जो associated हैं. So I hope you can recollect that. The play has Harry. After his love marriage, he goes into for a world tour, right? And he pushes his wife, and she died. And this really fills him with a lot of guilt, with a lot of remorse altogether. And what are we able to see? What are we able to look at? We are able to see. We are able to look at कि ये जो remorse है, right? He's expressing his remorse altogether. He's also telling his aunt Agatha. He's also telling his aunt Agatha about it. इसको थोड़ा सा compare करो, with you sharing your guilt after a crime that you've done, and she suggests him to go on a long journey, right? To repent. Agatha is the person who's trying to convince. So ये भी please याद रखना that how Agatha is coming and how Agatha is actually trying to tell him, trying to prompt him altogether. ठीक है? Lady Amy, Harry, Agatha, ये सारे के सारे मेन कैरेक्टर्स हैं. एंड लुक एट द फेमस लाइन, I keep wishhood alive to keep the family alive, to keep them together, to keep me alive, and I keep them, right? And I keep them. So the family reunion, a very different sort of a verse play altogether. This is not something that you'll be able to see. जैसे हैरल्ड पिंटर का केयरटेकर में आपको ये चीज नहीं दिखती है, तो थोड़ा बहुत हमें ध्यान देना पड़ेगा to even compare and keep on regurgitating so that we remember most of the things. ये important हो जाता है. तो अगाथा का कैरेक्टर, हैरी का कैरेक्टर, हाउ हैरी किल्स हिमसेल्फ, कंपेयर दिस विद अ लॉट ऑफ अदर वर्क्स जो हम अमेरिकन नेचुरलिज्म में भी करेंगे, where people are killing each other in what desire. Dostoevsky's Raskolnikov's character, Crime and Punishment, what prompts you to commit a crime altogether, and then you're later on repenting or not repenting at times. Just a stranger and outsider. My mother died yesterday or maybe day before. He's not instrumental in killing his mother, but still he's not doing a lot of things either. Cocktail Party is another major work that we are able to see, right? आपका Cocktail Party जो है, that becomes another important work, right? Cocktail Party becomes another important work. Now please remember ये जो elements of the play, they are actually based on Alcest, right? Which was based on Euripides' play. ये question आपका as it is पूछा जाता है कि which work is actually inspired from Alcest, the Euripides play. तो ये आप याद रखिएगा. It was the most popular play altogether. आज जो हम लोग जब जर्मन लिटरेचर कर रहे थे, वहां पे फुल हाउस कौन से प्ले में हो गया था? रिमेंबर, इवन रॉबर्ट्स मेलोड्रामा में फुल हाउस हो रहा है. फाउस्ट भी काफी पॉपुलर जा रहा है. ओके, नाउ द कॉमेडी सेंटर्स अराउंड द फॉर्च्यून्स ऑफ मिस्टर एडवर्ड चैम्बरलिन एंड लवीना चैम्बरलिन. दे आर सेपरेटेड आफ्टर 5 years of marriage. ठीक है, इनका एक तरह से 5 years of marriage के बाद एडवर्ड एंड लवीना का डिवोर्स हो रहा होता है. एंड प्रॉब्लम इज द यूजुअल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन द हस्बैंड वाइफ. सो ये काफी सारे लोग कर रहे हैं. हस्बैंड वाइफ बैंटर, जॉन ऑसबॉर्न लुक बैक इन एंगर में बताते हैं व्हेन ही इज टॉकिंग अबाउट किचन सिंक ड्रामा. और व्हेन वी आर लुकिंग एट अदर प्लेस आल्सो, राइट? आप जो बाकी के प्लेस भी देखते हो उसमें भी, गुड इवनिंग आयुश्री, गुड इवनिंग. ओके, आप जो बाकी के भी प्लेस देखते हैं, व्हाट आर वी एबल टू सी? वी आर एबल टू सी दैट ओवरऑल दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस टू कीप इन माइंड. जैसे हु इज अफ्रेड ऑफ वर्जीनिया वुल्फ बाय एडवर्ड एल्बी. एडवर्ड एल्बी हो गए अमेरिकन ड्रामेटिस्ट, ये भी हस्बैंड वाइफ के फ्यूड्स के बारे में लिखते हैं. या व्हेन वी आर एबल टू सी इवन हैरल्ड पिंटर, हैरल्ड पिंटर is also trying to talk about that. Osborne talks about it. So a lot of this domestic part, right? A lot of these domestic aspects of life life, ये सारे in place में आ रहे हैं and cocktail party becomes one such play, right? So please remember that cocktail party हो जाए आपका या family reunion में which is the aunt who's helping him to undertake the journey of repentance because he's killed his wife and she's died, या फिर आपका murder in the cathedral में what are the temptations that are given to Thomas A. Beck and what is the last temptation, spiritual growth की temptation, तो ये सब आपको थोड़ा सा याद रखना है. इसको correlate अगर आप करेंगे you will be able to remember it to the best of your abilities. Now coming on to your homework question for today, ठीक है, going on and going forward, coming on to your homework question, आज का आपका जो homework question है, जल्दी से मैं आपको आपका homework question जो आपने comment section में लिखना है, ठीक है, you have to tell me कि कौन से दो parts में हम यहीं से ही start करेंगे. तो टी.एस. एलियट क्या कर रहे हैं, टी.एस. एलियट poems 1920 लिख रहे हैं. ये कितने, it is divided into two groups of poems. It's divided into two groups of poems. ये कौन सी दो groups हैं और इन दो groups में क्या क्या poems आती हैं. So poems 1920 are divided into two categories of poems. You have to tell me the two categories of poems, ठीक है, और ये इनके examples आपने मुझे बताने हैं. So आपने मुझे categories भी बतानी है और आपने मुझे examples भी बताने हैं. Fine. What all do you have to tell me? You have to tell me the categories also and you have to tell me the examples also. So I hope the homework is clear to all of you. We will be starting with this point only in the next class altogether. हम लोग इसी point से next class में start करेंगे. And of course, Merry Christmas all of you. We're coming closer to the end of 2023. I hope you are productively engaging yourself in these classroom classes as well. अगर कोई और doubt हो तो please do let me know about it. मैं PDF Telegram channel पे share कर दूंगी. I will share the PDF with all of you. Please skim through it. Poetry of T.S. Eliot आज ही एक बार go through करिएगा क्योंकि अभी हम लोगों ने revise किया है aerial poems, 4 quatrains, right? अभी हम लोग we were talking about all the pointers of T.S. Eliot. Which poem is a satire on church, hippopotamus. Love song of Hardayal is inspiring which work? It's inspiring love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. What are the opening lines of J. Alfred Prufrock? तो हम लोगों ने काफी सारे frontiers of criticism, तो ये सारे जो pointers हमने आज cover किए हैं, एक बार अगर जो मैं PDF अभी आपको भेज दूंगी, so please revise that. Merry Christmas all of you. Manshi, take care. And in case if there are any other problems, do let me know about it. Fine. Thank you so much everyone for joining in, and I'll catch up with all of you very soon. Monday to Friday as it is 10:30 p.m. हमारी regular YouTube पे class है, and Monday to Friday for December, January and February we are meeting at 8:30 p.m. for your foundation batch classes, or obviously March onwards, February onwards, and February onwards will be Monday to Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Fine. Thanks everyone for joining. Take good care of yourselves. Good night, Anjali, Dominator, Pragati. Thanks, Devashish. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. And अगर कोई और doubt हो तो please do let me know. Thanks, Pooja. That's so sweet of you. I'll catch up with all of you then. Himanshi, there will be a class on Monday, लेकिन मैं आप लोगों को Telegram पे बता दूंगी. And as it is some or the other video, in case there 1% there's no class on Monday, I will be sending some or the other video for all of you to learn and revise. ठीक है? So don't worry about that aspect. Fine. Merry Christmas. Thanks, Dominator Rajneesh. Take care. May Santa fulfill all your wishes and may all of you clear the respective exams that you're preparing for. Take care. God bless. Bye.